Good morning, Judy here from Thistledew Creations. This morning when I got up, I decided I wanted to do some painty papers. So I got out my watercolors from Dollarama that have the mica in them. They're like, what are they calling them? Metallic? Yeah, metallic, they call it. And I just pulled out some sketchbook paper, which is kind of an ivory color. Pulled out some pages and did some painting on them. And then I tried some stenciling on them. So I finally figured out that I needed to switch from watercolor to ink to do the stenciling, because when I did this one, it's still drying, but it was too wet and the watercolors just flowed under the stencil. So we got some areas where my paintbrush was a little drier that it worked, but I eventually figured out that it would be best to use ink over top. So I did these ones with the pink watercolor and then with my lavender 02 ink. And they turned out nicely. And so I'm just painting the watercolor right onto the paper. And to dry these ones, my wood stove's going this morning because it's a cool, damp morning. And so 3 to 5 seconds in a flat pan on top of my wood stove dried them. Now they're very crinkly, but if I really want them flattened, I could iron them. So I did some book pages. These are pink with the watercolor over top. Actually, I think that's pink with the, yeah, I think that is, before I switched to the 02 ink, I tried this Forever in Time ink, which looked to be quite a dark purple. It wasn't dark enough for my liking, so that's why I switched to the 02 ink, which gave me a much better image. Still can control how dark it is, but I really like the way that those look. So I did about 6 or 8 pages. Those ones were done with the pink watercolor and then the purple ink. And then I've got a couple of purple ink or purple watercolor ones done. So I did paint it on both sides. It wasn't soaking wet. It was very damp all over. And then like I said, 3 to 5 seconds on top of the wood stove this morning, dried these. So whatever method you're going to use for drying, this gives it quite a crinkly, interesting effect compared to the original paper. You can hear the difference. So I think I'll do one of my rose stencils over top of this purple and see how it turns out with the 02 ink. And then we're going to do some teal ones after that. So I'm just getting my blending brush with a fair bit of ink on it because I want this rose fairly dark. Just holding the stencil down with my finger and thumb. And then I will go over to this other rose. And the rest of them are all leaves, so maybe I should switch to green. And I don't know if I have a good green. I've got this green. Oh, I know what I can use. The one that Wanda sent me. Sorry, Wanda. She sent me some distress ink in peeled paint. That might be just perfect. And I've already got a dauber with it on it, so I'm going to use that. A little different than the brush. We'll see how it does on the stencil. So just getting some ink on there. And then we'll see how this works. I think the brushes work a little bit better on the stencil if you're going to do it in circles, which I tend to want to do. But let's just see how this goes. I have to be more of a dabbing effect with this stencil and this dauber. So that's pretty. I like the way the green looks with it. Really gives it a much more realistic look, doesn't it? To have those leaves green, then to just stencil the whole thing with the purple. I quite often do this stencil in coffee dyed and use vintage photo on it, and I just do the whole thing in brown, but wow, does that ever look pretty with the two colors? Not hard to do. And so let's do another one like that. And you'll notice, you might notice too, that I've used different techniques for the painting. Swirls versus crosshatch. Just to, I don't know that it makes that big of a difference to the finished look of the paper, but it stops me from getting bored of doing the same thing over and over. So there's that. So more of the purple for the rose. I'll have to go back and do some pink roses. Thanks. Covered. Here I'm going to daub. Daub, daub, daub. Paper's not very flat, so that doesn't help when you're stenciling either. But I don't mind if I get a slightly shady look. I think it looks good. So let's do some teal pages. I've got the aqua colored paint. And I could just do this on copy paper, but I just like the feel of this paper. So I've got just a little mini muffin plastic container with some water in each section so that when I switch colors, I've got clean water. These ones are deep enough that you get a little bit of water in each one. I did rinse my brush out, but it might give me a little bit of purple. That's what I did last. So I'm just taking a little water and putting it on top of the watercolor and just working it so that I get some of the paint to mix in with the water. And then, like I said, I did some different techniques. So I'll do swirl technique here, and I'm not getting a lot of the paint. Let's just pick up a bit more. I'm going to put a bit too much water. Or sometimes they just need a little time to interact, the paint and the water. So I'm getting some really dry bits here, so I'm going back over where it was wet and just mixing it in. Try not to add any more water than I have to. And I don't mind also that I'm not getting a perfectly even color, because I like it to look kind of shaded and not all one color. Try to get this corner without adding more water. Get my corners of the paper. Don't really want any blank spots. Wouldn't really matter if there was, but. And then it's not super wet. I don't know if you can tell. It's droopy, but it's not like water's not dripping off of it or anything. And then I'll just grab a little bit more water. Now that that has had a chance to soften up a bit, it should mix up a little bit better. And just working it a bit. So my brush is pretty much saturated with the color. And then again, I'll start in the middle of the page and work my way to the outside edges. And this leaves such a nice glimmer on the paper. Adds some color, but it's that shimmer that I like. Just a little dab. I'm trying to do it as dry as possible so that it dries really quickly. I'm going to paint 2 pages and then I'm going to take them in there and dry them. The wood stove is 15 feet away. So I've got 2 pieces of towel here. So this one I'm going to do the crosshatch method, which all I did for it is just go this way. You wouldn't have to do it on a diagonal, you can do it straight. And then turn it over. It'd be really pretty to have a journal with all the paper having the shimmer. Make a good bridal book. And just for someone who likes shimmer. I think my next experiment will be to play with some of my micas and mix them with some paints and some clear varathane and stuff and see what effects I can get with those. I don't know if it'll be more shimmery than this. I'm thinking it might. And I'll flip it back over and with a dry mix, go back the other direction. Just give it like a crosshatch effect. I don't know how well you're going to be able to see that on camera. And I'm just using an old paintbrush. It's number 12, 4720-R Bristlet by M. Grumbacher. It was probably one of my moms. She did real painting. She painted real things. Mostly mountain scenes, garden scenes. Kind of almost like Bob Ross style, as she did a lot of, but she did a few, one in particular, a very beautiful portrait of a woman, and it's amazing to me that she was able to do that. So I'm going to be away from the camera for about 10 seconds max. So give me just a few. 1 1,000, 2 1,000, 3 1,000, 4 1,000, 5 1,000, 6 1,000, 7 1,000, 8 1,000, 9 1,000, 10 1,000, 11 1,000, 12 1,000, 13 1,000, 14 1,000, 15 1,000, 16 1,000, 17 1,000, 18 1,000, 19 1,000, 20 1,000, 21 1,000, 22 1,000, 23 1,000, 24 1,000, 25 1,000, 26 1,000, 27 1,000, 28 1,000, 29 1,000, 30 1,000, 31 1,000, 32 1,000, 33 1,000, 34 1,000, 35 1,000, 36 1,000, 37 1,000, 38 1,000, 39 1,000, 40 1,000, 41 1,000, 42 1,000, 43 1,000, 44 1,000, 45 1,000, 46 1,000, 47 1,000, 48 1,000, 49 1,000, 50 1,000, 51 1,000, 52 1,000, 6 1,000, 7 1,000, 8 1,000, 9 1,000, 10 1,000. So one paper is dry already, if you can hear me. 1 1,000, 2 1,000, 3 1,000, 4 1,000, 5 1,000, 6 1,000, 7 1,000, 8 1,000, 9 1,000, 10 1,000. So I was away for more like 20 seconds. And I got both of these to the point where I can stencil on them. They're not completely dry because I was concerned I was leaving you too long. But I can certainly stencil on them. So I've got my Alina Craft 02 ink in carved jade is what I'm going to use on top of this purple one, which is called, or the mint one, which is called Seafoam Green. And the ink is carved jade. So I've got a dedicated brush for each 02 ink. And I'm positioning my stencil part way on the page. I can't center it because it won't fit. So I like to just do a half a one or a little more than half a one maybe. So that's what I'm doing here. Get some ink onto my blender. And I start in the middle, nice and dark, and then I will try to make it lighter as I go out, so I'm just not pressing as hard on this layer. And then what I tend to do is darker on these ones, because these are almost like peacock feathers. They just feel like they have a more intensity to them. Of course, you can do more than one color for your stenciling, but I'm just going for kind of a background monochromatic look today. And you do have to be careful with these that you don't press down too hard. You get a little blotch when you first touch down. So you could even start it out on the stencil somewhere and then work your way into the page. And I'm not going to do the outer layer there. I'm just going to do that. Wow, that's pretty. It's my favorite color, so I'm going to like it probably no matter how it turns out. So let's do one of the roses in this as well. This page is just a little more damp, but it'll still work. So is that the same color? Is it the same side I used for the purple? It should be fairly dry by now anyway. So again, deep in the middle and then gradually softer as it gets to the outside petals. And then the rosebud, I want it darkest up at the top here, at that opening. I didn't realize that this stencil only had 2 roses on it. So one thing I had mentioned, I didn't know, I don't have any of these large stamp ink pads from Tim Holtz. I didn't realize that these were smaller than them, but they are. And I've got to get more of them. I like the Tim Holtz ones. So now I'm daubing my leaves. I'm sure Wanda will be happy to see that I'm playing with my new toys already, my ink and my dauber that she sent me. And like I said in the video where I unboxed her swap box, oh, I think that is a rosebud right there. It was the day before or the day that I got the swap box that I found a package of 3 of these in my craft room that I didn't know I had. I find a lot of things I didn't know I had lately. I've been just collecting so much stuff over the last 3 or 4 years. Oh, my heart. I did those roses just right. Yeah. Okay, so let's do some more teal. I love that. I'm going to do some book pages in it. And I've been doing these 2 or 3 at a time, so let's do 3. These are all Footprints in the Sand from the book Footprints in the Sand. Kind of a shame to use such nice aged papers, but I'm going to anyway. I have lots. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my water and get myself some aqua metallic watercolor going here. And these ones do up so fast because they're little. do want to do both sides. I know I don't really have to, but see how it's curling up, and then when I do the other side, that kind of goes away. So let's do both sides. And that way, I mean, I might be gluing this down if I use it for collage, but more likely I'll use it as a page in a journal. And I might just do some small journals to use these small pages. This side doesn't feel like it has much mica on it, so I'm just putting a little extra. What I should do is put a little water in when I'm done so that it's activating the watercolor while I'm doing my stenciling. Get a little bit of a mass make going. This is working okay though. So this will be a great thing for me to do up out on the porch this summer and have it for happy mail throughout the year and to use in my journals. But you know, the happy mail is almost a hobby in itself. I love sending and receiving happy mail. You get interesting things from all over the world that you can use to craft with. And you get a chance to share, because when we go thrifting and yard sailing and estate sailing and we find these awesome things, we often end up with way more than we're ever going to use in our entire lifetime. And so it's nice to share some of it and make room for more. So I'm just going to quickly go get these dry. And while I'm doing that, I'm just going to add more water, a bunch more water to this teal, because I do want to do more of it. Just let that react a bit while I do my thing. These ones are actually sizzling. They dry really fast. This is a vintage baking pan that I've got on the top of the wood stove, and I've been using it for tea and coffee dyeing, but it's not coming off on the paper. I might if it was better. It wouldn't really bother me too much if it did. So now that I've figured out that trick of putting a pan on top of the wood stove, guess what I'm doing all next winter? I'm saying I'm going to do it all summer on the porch, but guess what I'm going to do all next winter? Maybe what I'll do is just do this part and save the stenciling to do on the porch. That might be what I do, because I love to stencil. Okay, so let's do this rose again, and this is going to take up most of the page, but that's okay. So my O2 Helena Craft and my peeled paint from Kimmy. And again, remember that that is also a rosebud. I think both of those are rosebuds. Keep it covered. that's one thing I do have a problem with my porch in the summer, is that it's sometimes windy, quite often windy. So it might be better. I mean, that might help my papers dry, but oh, that's so pretty. Very pretty. So let's just do 3 of those. I like that a lot. And this time I'm going to start with my leaves since it's already out. Lovely. And so if you're very careful how you place them, you might get identical ones, but I don't really want to get identical ones. I want to get a variety. So let's do one where the roses are kind of up. Let's just do one rose in the corner, and then the rest of the page is mostly leaves. See how that looks. That, and then just a few pounces with this green. And I do like this green, Wanda. It's just the right color. There. So let's do a recap of what I've got done, and then I'll probably continue to play for a while today and into this evening. Pull out some more papers and do some more color combinations, but I just love them. Like that itself could make an awesome journaling card with some tea-dyed paper on the back. So maybe what I'll do is just paint one side of some of the pages and then make them into journaling cards, because those are just beautiful. And I'm sure I could also add splatter and stuff like that. Dress them up. I mean, I'm starting to do a little bit of splattering, and now I think everything needs it. So there's my pink version with the roses. These ones are very lightly stenciled. I might want to do some roses over top of that. Very pretty. So just have a play. See what you come up with your paints and your inks and your stamps and your stencils. So much fun, and it doesn't have to totally consume your desk. I'm using a space here about 3 feet by 2 feet, and I've got my water, my coffee, and other water, as well as my supplies that I'm working on. So the biggest thing is the drying, the time that takes. So it might make sense to sit beside the wood stove and do it if you can handle the heat, and keep, so like I say, it only takes a few seconds for them to dry. So hopefully you'll enjoy doing some of that, and you enjoyed watching me do it, and I hope I've inspired you to create something today. Like, comment, share, subscribe. Most of all, have a great day and happy crafting.